I'm Paul. I'm a kid from Cleveland living in Washington, D.C., and I'm a watch geek. So believe it or not, the first mechanical watch I ever bought was a women's watch, an Omega DeVille that I actually bought for my wife. It was the holiday season. I was doing the mental list of like, what do you get your wife? And I was thinking about that, and it occurred to me, like, why don't you just get her something special? Why don't you actually get her something meaningful that she'll wear, that she'll maybe someday give to somebody else, pass down? Like, if you're gonna get her something nice, why don't you get her something not just nice, but actually special? That was, for me, a moment that really shaped how I think about buying watches. My interest in watches is not based on the combination of the amazing mechanical engineering and the design, which is in and of itself a great reason to get into this. When I pick out a particular watch to buy, I buy it with the hope that someday, if I'm lucky, I can give that to someone special. They can take that, make it their own, and take a little bit of me, my personality, my sentiment with them, both figuratively and literally, and maybe someday they'll give it to somebody else. There actually is a theme here. It's a little hard to find, which is I'm into watches that are traveling watches or watches that are about travel. I have a 5-year-old son, and we decided a few years ago that we were going to take a train trip across the country. We were going to ride the train, sleep on the train, eat on the train, go across the country to Seattle. The impetus, how this all started, was when he started getting into trains just because he was a 3-year-old boy and he was interested in trains. I got into it because it was something that we could connect over. It got me interested in the history of the rail. It got me interested in American history, the push out west. I got this ball watch to wear on that trip for a few reasons. Before the creation of standard time zones, outside Cleveland, around Toledo, the conductor on the train forgot to wind his pocket watch. Back then, the trains used to run on single tracks. His watch was off by 4 minutes, and as a result of that, 2 trains collided head-on. That led to the creation of standard time zones. I think it's Webster C. Ball, was heavily involved in that. His company, the Ball Watch Company, is still around today. It's called the Royal Blue. The Royal Blue was the train, used to be the high-end luxury train that ran from Washington, D.C. to New York. It's 233 miles of track, so they made 233 of these. That is the train, I guess that would be the precursor to the Acela that I take every time I go to New York for meetings. On most Ball watches, there's a train on the back of them. This one has the Royal Blue on the back of it. The look and the style of Ball watches today is reminiscent or evocative of like the standards that they put in place for the pocket watches that the conductors would wear. From totally different perspectives, we share an interest in trains. At the heart of it, we just probably both like them because they're trains and they're really freaking cool and they're neat. And to go across the country by rail, eat dinner on the train. We eventually got to Seattle. We hung out in Seattle for a few days. We actually brought nice clothes and went out to nice restaurants. And it's hard to believe, but when you go across the country on a train with your 3.5 son, you actually will have profound discussions with him. He will actually talk to you about what he's thinking, and it was a trip of a lifetime. It was a trip I'll never forget. He still has vivid memories of this trip now that he's 5. I'm sure over time those memories will fade. I look forward to the day when I give this to my son in the not too distant future as a way for him to hopefully remember about that trip when he and his dad rode the train across the country and had a blast. I've admired FP Journe watches for a long time, sort of admired them from afar like so many people do. We were in Paris for my 15-year wedding anniversary. I wanted a watch that I would associate with my family and my wife, and we were walking around and we came upon the Journe boutique in Paris. We're Americans with a stroller. So I went in first. I was a little apprehensive. I was a little nervous. They couldn't have been more gracious. And I was looking at some pieces, and I kind of stopped the conversation. I said, wait, my family is actually here with me. And they said, of course, please bring them in. We're a family company. This is a family business. It took probably 15 minutes to navigate the double security doors with the stroller, but we got everybody in, and for the period of probably 3 hours, my family sort of took over the boutique. They kind of sort of closed it down so we could have the place just to ourselves. My son, who was interested in the watches for a little bit, and then, found one of the FP journals and started doodling, and my daughter took a loop and ran around the boutique and looked at everything with the loop. My son at one point, I think, wandered down into the basement where the watchmaker was actually working. That was the point at which he brought him up and said, whose kid is this? And for probably 3-ish hours, basically took over the FP Journe boutique. I don't know what they were thinking, but they couldn't have acted nicer. They couldn't have acted more gracious. I think that if you're into watch collecting, you should consider at some point buying a nice piece from a boutique. It doesn't have to be a Journe, but there's something about that experience of going to the boutique, and it's not so much like the red carpet experience, so to speak, but it's just seeing everything that brand is about, having a wonderful, we were probably there for 3 hours. They sort of unofficially closed the doors, locked the doors so we could just have the place to ourselves and take as much time as we want. And there's something really special about that. When we were done, when I decided this was the piece I wanted to get, and I purchased it, and they had the boxes and everything, the store manager said, "We've got some paperwork to do here. We're going to finish stuff up." Of course, we shipped the box and all of that stuff back home. He said, "Go get lunch. You guys go have a nice day. When you get somewhere where you're ready, give me a call. I'll jump on my scooter. We'll bring the watch over to you." And we left there, went out to this amazing lunch in Paris, and of course, when we were ready, he came by in his scooter in 10 minutes and brought the watch to me. What I like, there's a lot of things to like about Journe. What I like about this particular watch is that the thing that makes it so amazing is actually on the inside. I have wanted a gold watch for a long time. This is not a gold watch, but it is a gold watch to me because of the movement. The gold is on the inside, the gold is sort of hidden. Power reserve, no date, which is what I like. Date is my least favorite complication, actually. With a kind of a honeycomb dial, platinum case, and then the movement is made out of essentially mostly gold and brass. It's a watch I really do think of as sort of like a watch that, I don't know, it makes me think of my family, represents my family. What's so special about it is on the inside, nobody else sort of knows it but me. This is a watch we definitely will give to my wife at some point. Then it'll sort of become our watch. I don't know, maybe years down the road, this is sappy. I suspect I'll probably go before she goes. Maybe this will be the one watch she keeps and will wear and think of me and things like that. Polerouters are super cool for a bunch of reasons. This one's actually my favorite. It was black. Now I describe it as, I think it's maybe like an espresso dial. The way it's aged, the way it's patinated, it's it's sort of become a little bit of brown. It's become brownish black, like an espresso dial. But as I said, there is sort of a theme here that I like travel watches or watches associated with travel. I was on a trip for work, and you can't really do the pole route anymore. You kind of sort of do the pole route. Like if the weather's right and you happen to be going from the right place to the right place at the right time, you kind of sort of do. You do the modern day equivalent of a pole route. You go close to the pole. and the pilot will tell you when you're actually kind of sort of doing the pole route. And so I was lucky enough to be on a flight where we kind of sort of did the pole route, the closest thing you can do to a pole route nowadays, which is this like weirdly nerdy thing that most people don't care about. And if you care about these things, you can actually, well, you'll stand up. You're technically, I guess, you're on top of the world. You're the tallest person on the planet at that moment. If you're a cynic, it's a moment when you can truly look down on the world. There's only one person in my life who would have geeked out on that as much as I would have, or as much as I did, who would care about this. And that's my business partner, who was doing just as much travel as I was at the time. And he was not on that flight with me. He was not on that flight because at the time we were kind of in the middle of a heated argument, a disagreement about the direction of the company and some business decisions that had to get made. And we both needed to be at this meeting, but because we weren't really getting along, we took different flights. We both got there, but we took different flights, so he wasn't there. And I stood up and I realized, like, the one person that I'd want to share this with, he's not here because we're in a bit of an argument. I wear this watch a ton. I actually have a picture of this watch outside the door to my office because what it reminds me of when I wear it is you're going to get in arguments, you're going to get into disagreements in life with family and friends and work colleagues, and you can decide to hold a grudge, you can decide to stay mad, but at what cost? Think about that when I wear this watch. The hope is someday I'll sort of give it to him. I think to him it'll be a neat, cool watch. To me, I'll kind of understand what it represents, and it'll be, it's a sappy thing, but hopefully someday I'll be able to give it to him. Everyone that ever got a raise or a promotion has a Submariner. So growing up, I had an older brother, younger sister, 3 kids. My mother figured out really quickly the way to sort everything was assign us colors. Older brother, the first boy, he got blue. My younger sister, the only girl in the family, she got red, and I got stuck with green. And everything I had was green, and I frickin' hated green. I still kind of hate green to this day. Years later, like, I started to miss green because it just makes me think of being a kid. It makes me think of my family. It makes me think of my mom. And I always wanted a Rolex Submariner, like a Datejust, like a Speedy. It's just one of those watches I think you should experience sometime. And the fact that they made a green Submariner, for me, it was like, that's my color. That is it. I'll still never wear a green shirt, but wearing a little bit of green or having a little something that's green, it makes me think of my family. It actually makes me think of my brother and my sister. It makes me think of my mom. And my hope someday is that I'll be able to give this to my nephew, to my godson Jonathan, because green is weirdly, like, it's become a family color. It's a way of giving him some green. My mother gave this pocket watch to me. Her father died when she was young, and this pocket watch is the pocket watch that was worn by not her father, but the man who largely raised her, or helped raise her with her mother, whom I'm named after. It worked, it ran, it was probably bone dry on the inside, and I was able to get this thing restored and running again with all the original parts. It's a Ploju pocket watch, which is actually the retailer. You look at the enamel work on this, they just don't do this anymore. I think what makes this thing so special is not just sort of the story behind it, but knowing that my mother wanted me to have it. She knew how special it would be to me, and I'll hold on to this for a little while. I'll take care of it, and someday, whether I pass it on to my son or my daughter or one of the grandkids, like, it's an heirloom piece that'll stay in the family for a long time, and hopefully the story will get passed down. And it's named after some guy, Paul, that some other guy was named after Paul, and that's why you're named Paula or whatever. This is the first Rolex I ever bought. A 1603 with the engine turn bezel. A 36 mil Rolex Datejust, in my opinion, is everything that's great about Rolex design. There is nothing more comfortable than a slightly stretched out Jubilee bracelet. Like come on. Like, I like engine turn bezels because if you're going to get a vintage piece, they don't do that anymore. And it's still pretty sharp. You can see where someone was actually sitting there making the cuts into the steel, which is part of what makes it cool, part of why I like an engine turn bezel. The hope someday is that I'll be able to give this to my daughter. It's sort of a sentimental, sappy notion. Someday when she's going to a big job interview or a big meeting, something important, that I'll have a moment to talk with her and explain to her, like, don't show up late, don't show up early either. Be there on time. And she'll take it, she'll have, maybe that boosts her confidence by 1% or something like that. And she has a killer meeting or she has a killer interview, and she'll take it and she'll wear it on from there.